Yo, what's happening, man? Welcome back to another episode of the Damn You Too Sportstalk. This your boy Ralph Sneaks. Coming to you with another live episode, man. I think it's episode 22. But I'm back here with another episode. Make sure you head over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell so you can get notified when new content drop. Head over to Instagram, uh, damn underscore YouTube underscore sports talk. That's where you can follow the sports page. Where it's got exclusive content. Sunday NFL picks before kickoff. Um, Twitter X, damn you two sports talk over there. Or if you want to follow my personal page on IG is Ralph underscore sneaks. They scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. Head over to them platforms, follow, subscribe. I follow back. But yeah, man, we're gonna get into it. Another episode. Uh, a football weekend full of football, both college and NFL. Um, we had a shakeup in the AP poll, college football rankings. Um, there's a new number one. Georgia's no longer number one. They fell down, dropped down to number two. Texas is now the number one team. They bumped up from 2-1. They just basically swapped with Georgia. Georgia fell from 1-2, and Texas went from 2-1. Um, Georgia. Let's start there. They had an ugly win at Kentucky. I'm sorry, it was at Kentucky. Ugly win. Um, I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if this was a case where Georgia went to Kentucky because they struggled in Kentucky before under Kirby Smart, but they've won. They won, but they didn't look like the Georgia that we know them to look like in Kentucky under Kirby Smart. This ain't the first time they struggled in Kentucky with Kirby Smart as the head coach. They've struggled before in Kentucky, but they won the game in Kentucky. But it wasn't this close like Saturday, 13-12. Georgia scored the only touchdown of the game. Um, Now, I will say this, Georgia, I don't know of any other team or how many other teams, if there is any other team in the country that hasn't allowed a touchdown so far this season. Georgia is one of them. They only gave up a field goal to Clemson. They only gave up a field goal to Tennessee Tech, and they only gave up four field goals to Kentucky. And like I said, Georgia scored the only touchdown of the game to edge them 13-12. But I don't know if this was a case of Kentucky came to play because now Georgia is that team that everybody is throwing their best at, um, especially on the road. It's hard to beat Georgia in Athens. It's hard to beat them at home. You can throw your best stuff at them and keep the game close to halftime, but they pull away. They pull away at home. Now, when they go on the road, they're gonna get the best of everybody because they're the team that has won two championships in the past 3 years. They're the team that's projected to be in the national championship game this year. So they're going to get the best from everybody when they go on the road. Then you look at the fact that they're in the SEC, which is a tough conference anyway. So they're definitely going to get the best when they go on the road. Um, so I get that part of it, but I don't know whether it was the fact that Georgia kind of took Kentucky lightly, especially seeing what South Carolina did to them last week. And now that we realize South Carolina ain't as bad as the teams we thought they was, because they went down to the wire with LSU this weekend, in which they should have won the game, but they had some costly penalties that cost them the game, and probably a bad call that cost them the game, or calls that cost them the game down the stretch. So we don't even look at South Carolina as being as bad as we once did. But I don't know if Georgia took Kentucky lightly with Brock Vandagriff being the quarterback over there, who was the former backup quarterback at Georgia. So I'm not sure that they take them lightly because Brock didn't light it up. If you had to look at that game, Kentucky defense had a huge part in keeping Georgia right there at 13 points. Now, if you keep a team like Georgia at 13 points, you got a damn good chance at beating them. But the problem is your offense got to score more. So this was a game that was basically won by Georgia's defense. They bent, but they didn't break. You know what I'm saying? Kentucky was able to move the ball to field goal range, and that was it. They didn't get in the end zone. Georgia defense held them to all field goals. So once your defense can continuously hold the offense to field goals, at some point your offense got to kick in gear and say, look, man, we got to help this defense out. They bending, but they ain't breaking. The team is driving, getting in field goal range, but they ain't getting in the end zone. Defense keeping them out the end zone, holding them to a field goal. We got to do our part by going down the field and getting in the end zone to help our defense out. So I don't know if that was a case of that was just Kentucky's, I guess, national championship game because they played Georgia at home, and that was their chance to upset them and knock them off. It didn't happen. So they went out and gave everything they had to beat Georgia, or Georgia just took them lightly. I don't know. Because some of the play calling that I've seen, it was almost like they knew they were going to beat Kentucky. So it was like, why are we putting our best, showcasing our best play calling when we could just do some of the basic, simple things to move the ball on Kentucky and score points and get out of here without exposing too much? Because they have a bye week coming up. And then coming out of that bye week, they go to Alabama. So they got essentially 2 weeks to prep for Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Because that's where they got to go. So, and you just seen Bama come off a win at Camp Randall in Wisconsin. I think it was 42-10. And to be honest with you, Bama hasn't looked as dominant as people would think they would look. I understand Nick Saban ain't head coaching over there no more, but even last year, Bama had slip ups. And then coming in this season, I understand they undefeated, but last week they won a battle with South Florida, and they go to Camp Randall. They eventually pull off in the fourth quarter. And that game, if you look at the final score, you would have thought that game wasn't close, but it was close. Bama didn't pull off until late in the fourth quarter. So then they go to Wisconsin this week, and take care of Wisconsin. But Wisconsin's quarterback went down in the first quarter, like midway through the first quarter, he went down. So they ain't really been looking as dominant. So, like I said, it's a new top 10, Texas, we're gonna start with 10, Penn State 10, Oregon at 9, Miami at 8, Missouri at 7, Tennessee at 6, Ole Miss at 5, Bama's at 4, Ohio State 3, Georgia 2, and Texas the new number 1 team. But if you notice in there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 SEC teams in there. You got Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Missouri, Georgia. You got 6 SEC teams in the top 10. And they all look good. There's not a questionable SEC team that shouldn't be in there, in my opinion. Missouri looked good, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Bama. Even though Georgia had a scare this weekend, but you can't knock that because, like I said, I don't know how much of that was they just underestimated Kentucky because it was Kentucky, or Kentucky really showed up to play because that was their national championship game trying to knock Georgia off. And like I said, Georgia's gonna get this on the road every game this season. So 2 weeks to prepare. They got Bama in 2 weeks. They got a bye week this week. Then they go to Tuscaloosa to play Bama. So you look at Georgia. I don't know if it's the play calling, is it Mike Bobo, or what the situation is over there. But teams you got to put away, you got to put them away. You can't go out there and have these scares like that. I understand this, it's a conference game, but you're much better than Kentucky. Much better than Kentucky. So I don't understand all this lollygagging around coming into the game. You know what I mean? If you Georgia, if you're the offensive coordinator, you need to go teams like this, you got to put them away early. You got to send a statement. And that's why you're not number 1 no more. That's why they dropped you number 2. You barely beat Kentucky because you didn't come out there and do what you're supposed to do. Once you finally woke up and realized that Kentucky came to play, you was in a battle. And now you let Kentucky get momentum, and you actually got them thinking that they could possibly upset and beat you. You're not thinking like that. But now that you let them play that way so long and be in the game with you for so long, you got them playing and thinking like that. So now when you try to kick it into gear, you already trying to kick it into gear against a team who's already in gear. And you just now trying to kick it in gear. So as a result, you kind of playing into their hands. You kind of getting outside of your game plan because you now realize you got to play instead of coming out doing it out the gate. But you ain't do that. I guess you underestimated Kentucky. Kentucky played much better on defense than you thought they were going to play, and they didn't back down, and you barely beat them. You beat them, but you barely beat them. But the point I'm making is teams like Kentucky, you got to come out there and you got to go ahead and put them away early. You can't give these teams no chance to feel like they can upset you, especially on the road. That's what they're looking to do. You ought to hunt it now. If you Georgia, your teams are hunting you now. So you can't come out here and underestimate no team, especially on the road. You much better than Kentucky. You got to go out there and put these guys away early. You got better playmakers than Kentucky. You got a better quarterback than Kentucky. You got a better defense than Kentucky. You got a better head coach than Kentucky. You by far better than Kentucky across the board everywhere. You check all the boxes that Kentucky don't check across the board. You better. So you need to go in there, take care of them guys early, get them out the way, so then you can kind of coast late in that third quarter, going into that fourth quarter. You can kind of coast. There was no reason this game should have been a 31-9, 31-10 game. You should have been coasting in that fourth quarter. But instead, you barely win 13-12. Now you held them, you kept them out of the end zone. I get that. You haven't given up a touchdown all season, so I get that. But offensively, I didn't like what I seen offensively. Now I hope they go back to the drawing boards and don't come out here looking like that. Coming out of the bye week, going down to Tuscaloosa. I hope they don't come out there looking like that. If they come out there looking like that, they're gonna lose. It's gonna be L. They're gonna get their ass handed to them down there in Tuscaloosa. But I don't think that's gonna be the case. I think Kirby realize and understand what I'm saying. I mean, I ain't saying it like I talked to Kirby, but I'm saying if Kirby is going back to the drawing boards, he's thinking what I just said. Like, we got to put teams like that away early. We can't have that carrying over week to week. And like I said, they get a bye week this week, so they get additional week to prep and get ready to go down and play Alabama in Tuscaloosa. So I think with Kirby being Kirby, they're not going to do that. They're going to come out. They're going to come out much more aggressive against Bama than what they did against Kentucky, because you're going to be playing a better defense in Bama than you just played in Kentucky. So you're not going to be able to lollygag and ass around in Tuscaloosa with Alabama the same way you came out lollygagging and assing around against Kentucky. That's a different team. That's a different team down in Bama than what you just played in Kentucky. Both games on the road at Kentucky. Now you're at Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. So this is a statement game also coming up for Georgia. So they gotta really, in my opinion, come out the game aggressive. You know what I'm saying? They gotta come out of the half aggressive. They gotta win the first and third quarters, and then they gotta, play solid defense and still put up points, but they gotta really push the issue on defense in the fourth quarter. They got to come out aggressive on offense. Well, really got to push defense all game, but they got to come out in the first quarter and they got to be aggressive. They got to be aggressive. They got to mix up the play caller. They can't be so vanilla. I understand you got the run game with ETN, but you got weapons. You got a quarterback that's projected to go in the top 5 in this year's draft. He's projected to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. You have that type of quarterback in Carson Beck. You need to be out there. You have weapons on the outside. You have a massive offensive line. You got ETN. You got two. You got Robinson and you got ETN. So you got 2 backs. You got weapons on the offensive side, but there's no reason for you not to be out there utilizing all the weapons that you have. You need to open this thing up early. You need to get these teams off balance. You need to push the ball down the field and get in the end zone. You need to be aggressive early. You don't need to give these teams chances, a chance to even think they got a chance to upset. You don't even need to do that. Because luckily you came out of there with a win. So you had that going on in college football. Then, like I said, at South Carolina, who ain't as bad as we thought they were going to be, took LSU to the limit. They blew a 17-point lead. They lost to LSU, blew a 17-point lead because they were up, I think, 17-zip one time. Now, it was a couple bad plays and bad calls down the stretch, penalties that hurt South Carolina. But South Carolina ain't as bad as we thought they were going to be. I think what hurt South Carolina is they were going up against, even though they're at home, they were going up against an LSU team that they probably some degree couldn't really figure out how to put them away at the end because they kept shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, uh, jumping off sides, false starts, holding penalties. They had a roughing, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty after they had got a pick six. They had a pick six. They probably would have won the game for them. But then the guy decides he wants to. Well, I ain't even gonna say a cheap shot because the quarterback that threw it, he was trying to get back into play. So now he's. I think he should get. He should be able to be blocked because he threw a pick six and he tried to run into the play and he got blocked and the dude hit him and they threw an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That brought back the pick. That gave South Carolina the possession of the ball, but it took away the pick six that they had. That would probably have been the game-winning touchdown. Then, like I said, they had offsides. They had false starts. They had illegal motions, holding penalties, illegal use of hand penalty. You name a penalty, they had it down the stretch of the game. Then it didn't help that I think that wasn't a catch. I can't think of the receiver's name, but he caught the ball. He definitely was in bounds when he caught it. There was no question about him being in bounds. But did he? But he possessed it enough for it to be considered a catch? I don't think he did because he dropped it out of bounds. They reviewed it. The call was, stood as a catch. That set LSU up first and goal. So, they end up losing. And then they missed the game time field goal. So, LSU, South Carolina, not as bad as we thought. Tennessee taking care of Kent State. I mean, 71-0. There's no need to mention that. Miami 62-0 Ball State. Missouri beat Boston College. Just a rundown of the top 10 teams. Bama, like I said, 42-10. Texas, 56-7. University of Texas, San Antonio. So they play. I mean, these games really. Ole Miss 40-6 over Wake Forest. I mean, these games really wasn't close. Oregon 49-14 over Oregon State. These games wasn't even close. The closest game, like I said, was Georgia and Kentucky. And I think, like I just said, Georgia, they just need to do a better job of coming out being more aggressive to open the game up. Don't give these teams a chance to think they can beat you, because that's what they get. Georgia's they hunted now. Everybody's throwing their best. We saw how piss poor Kentucky played the week prior at home against South Carolina, and then they come out and play solid defense against a Georgia team. That's why I said Georgia needs to come out and be more aggressive because they was a much better team across the board than Kentucky. So yes, that's just a quick rundown of top 10 NFL. College football top 10 new AP. Like I said, Texas jumped from 2-1. That knocked Georgia down from 1-2. But we also had NFL action week 2. Some surprises, some disappointments. Yeah, we had some surprises and disappointments. Week 2 NFL. I don't know, bro. This kind of like a weird start to the season. Some of my a lot of my picks were wrong. It's just been more than half of my picks were wrong. It's been a weird start to the season. One thing I've been thinking about and looking at is like with these quarterbacks, especially these younger quarterbacks, particularly these younger quarterbacks. Why are teams so quick to jump and take a quarterback high in the draft when they don't have the coaching staff assembled for that pick for that quarterback that they drafted? Like, there's no reason to take a quarterback high, and this is where a lot of teams put a lot of problems on themselves, and this is why a lot of teams can't solve no problems. Because instead of getting the coaching staff right, they go out there and select a young rookie quarterback high in the first round and expect him to fix their problem in 2 seasons. A problem they've been had for the past 5 years, they expect the quarterback that they taking the top 10 to fix it in 2 years when they don't even have the right coaching staff. So if I'm a team, I'm more focused on getting everything else in order. Like, get my offensive line in order. And I'm only saying this because you look at a team like, and I hate to bring them up, but these team is sorry as hell. It's a shit show in Carolina right now. David Tepper and the crew is a shit show. If anything, they don't need to be charging people to go to the games. They need to be paying people to come to the games. That's how bad they look. What I'm saying is, why the hell would you take a young quarterback like Bryce Young when you ain't got shit around him? You're trying to rebuild. You don't have an offensive line. You don't have any wide receivers. You don't really got a defense solidified. First of all, what you need to do is, if you need a quarterback, you don't need to look to take one high in the first round unless you got everything else solidified, and only thing you missing is a quarterback, and you in position to draft one high. Other than that, just get you a veteran bridge quarterback that's going to get you year to year. Take your draft picks and go ahead and start on your offensive line. Well, first of all, you need to figure out which side of the ball you're going to start on. Is it going to be offense? Is it going to be defense? If you're starting on the defensive side of the ball, figure out where you're going to start it on the defense. Are you going to start up front on the D-line, or are you going to start on the back end with the secondary? So if you're going to start on the D-line, on the defensive side of the ball, then go ahead and start building your D-line. That's essentially going to help out the back end of your defense. Then you start plugging your veterans in there on the front and back end of the defense. Now, if you start on the offensive side of the ball, go ahead and start building your offensive line. I'm not saying get all rookies on your offensive line. Get you a couple rookies on your offensive line and go and get you a couple vets. Get the guy some weapons. Develop a run game. Now, I ain't say go out there and spend a ton of money on a running back, but develop a run game and get you a solid tight end. A tight end is a young quarterback's best friend. Go ahead and start building your offense for the quarterback. Why the hell are they taking quarterbacks so damn high for a young quarterback to come in and fix a problem in 2 years that you've been had for the past 5? You ain't had the coaching staff for that quarterback. So now what you're doing is you're wasting the pick, because you're not going to get out of that quarterback what you drafted to get out of that quarterback. So you essentially wasted a pick on a guy that ain't going to fix your problems, because you still got the same sorry ass staff. You don't have a staff to dwell with that quarterback. So essentially, you take him and think the quarterback is supposed to fix your issues in 2 years, the same issues you've been had for the past 5. You think this young quarterback is going to come in and fix them in 2 years. You don't have nothing around him for that to happen. Now, I think what they about to do in Carolina is, I think Roger Goodell and the NFL, they're going to have to investigate this David Tepper dude. They're going to have to investigate this owner. Because like I told y'all before, you got the big umbrella, which is the NFL. And then you got each NFL franchise up under that umbrella, which is a representation of the NFL. The Carolina Panthers, they ain't selling tickets. They ain't selling merch. They don't have a fan base. They ain't getting no national televised games. They doing everything to be in the negatives that you could possibly do. They selling tickets for $4 and $5. Now, the NFL is $1 billion brand. Now I get it. At one point, the Cleveland Browns were bad too. I get that. But one thing about the Cleveland Brown fan base is they were loyal. They were showing up to the dog pound. They were still selling tickets. They were still selling merch. So they were still generating revenue even though they were bad. But the Carolina Panthers, They ain't generating shit. They losing money. Ain't nobody buying tickets. Ain't nobody buying merch. They ain't getting no national televised games. They ain't got a fan base outside of Charlotte. Now, the only fans of the Carolina Panthers that will be outside of Charlotte will be people from the Carolinas that moved somewhere else and they took their fanhood with them wherever they moved. But you got more people moving into cities like Charlotte from outside of Charlotte that they bringing their fan base into Charlotte. So if you see people at the games in Charlotte, they ain't damn Panther fans. They fans of the opposing team that's coming in to play the Panthers. Now, if you look on TV, or if you can damn find a Panther game on TV without buying a damn NFL ticket, because that's probably the only way you're gonna watch a damn Panthers game, unless you in the Metro Charlotte area where you can get the game. But outside of that, you gonna get the damn Sunday ticket to watch the Panthers game, because ain't nobody putting that shit on prime time. They ain't getting no damn Fox or CBS games. They ain't getting no Sunday and Monday night games. They probably ain't even getting Thursday night games. So if you ever see a game of Carolina Panthers on TV and you see the blue in the stands, don't mistake the blue for fans. That ain't the damn fans. Those are empty seats. The seats are painted blue. Nobody's at the damn game. They ain't selling tickets. Tickets going low as $4 and $5, and they still can't damn sell them. So the NFL going to have to step in and do something about this. The David Tepper guy. They're going to investigate this guy and do something. Because right now the Carolina Panthers are making the NFL brand look bad. 3 points yesterday. 3 points. You got a quarterback that can't even pass for 100 yards. You got a quarterback that's got to slightly jump just to throw the damn ball because he can't see over the offensive line. The run game, non-existent. I don't know how many damn coaches you going to go through to realize that you fucked up by taking Bryce Young. Just admit it. Admit it. Sit Bryce. This is the classic example of what I'm talking about. Why the hell are the Carolina Panthers taking a quarterback to fix problems that they previously had that they relied on this quarterback to fix in 2 years? It ain't going to happen. They don't have an identity. They don't have a direction of which way they want to go. They bringing in coach after coach after coach, which means they're going to be bringing in offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator after offensive coordinator, scheme after scheme after scheme. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball for 100 yards a game. It's hard as hell for them to even get a fucking first down. They got more turnovers than first downs. Nobody at the game. The ones that's at the game is booing. It's a complete shit show down in Charlotte right now. Shit show. The NFL going to have to step in and investigate this dude and do something about it because they losing all kind of money with the Panthers. They making the NFL brand look bad. You can't do nothing. You can't run the ball. You can't throw the ball. Yeah, I mean, everybody that come in there and play Carolina or everybody that play Carolina look like Pro Bowlers. You got players judging by the body language. They don't even want to damn be there. They only there because they're getting paid. That's it. They're getting paid to show up, so that's why they're showing up. Why the hell would a team like the Carolina Panthers go out and spend that kind of money on a guy like Jadeveon Clowney? Now, me personally, in my opinion, Jadeveon Clowney at this point in his career, he's a rotational piece. He's a depth piece for a contending team. He's not a piece that you go in with a rebuilding squad like the Carolina Panthers to pay for, to be an every down starter. He's not that right now. Now, if you take Clowney, and I'm not saying this particular team, but if you take Clowney and put him on a team similar to San Francisco or similar to the Jets or something like that, that already got a defense assembled, and they don't necessarily need him to be an every down starter, but he'll be a nice rotational piece for them to come in on third down or whatever the case may be, then that's more of what Clowney is now. He's not a player that you go and spend a shitload of money on in free agency for a team like the Carolina Panthers, who got other holes to plug. They're not going nowhere no time soon. So why the hell would you spend that kind of money on a player like Jadeveon Clowney now? That makes absolutely no sense. That's the type of shit I be trying to tell y'all. They don't have a direction or an identity of what they want to do. They just doing shit just to do it. Why the hell would you spend that kind of money on a running back in Miles Sanders? What the Carolina Panthers should have been doing is they should have been drafting. Matter of fact, they should have been trading back in the draft because they've been drafting high enough to trade back in the draft to still get good talent and also pick up additional assets to plug other holes. It didn't make sense when they didn't trade Brian Burns to the LA Rams, allegedly for 2 first rounders and a second round pick, but instead they traded him to the Giants for a second round and a fifth rounder. That made no sense. And now if you Dave Canals, the head coach, you gotta step in, you gotta open your mouth, you gotta say something. I understand you're head coach now, and you're probably happy to have that job. But now everybody that's being brought into Carolina is being brought in for Bryce. Dave Canals, you were brought in for Bryce Young. That's who you were brought in for. They relying on you to fix Bryce Young, even though they know they fucked up. They're not gonna say that. They just bringing you in because they relying on you to fix Bryce Young based off what you did with Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith. They're bringing you brought you in to fix Bryce Young. And if Bryce Young ain't fixed, they gonna point the fingers at you, although they know they fucked up with selecting Bryce Young. So if you Dave Canals, you started 0-2. It's an ugly 0-2. It ain't a close 0-2. It's an ugly ass 0-2. Like I said, you got more turnovers and picks than you do first downs. So if you Dave Canals and you want to have any, I don't think that they're gonna fire Dave Canals this because it's his first year, and that will be another strike against his organization and how bad they look. But if you Dave Canals, what you got to do right now is you got to say to yourself, this guy Bryce Young ain't it. I can try one more time to fix this, but if we're gonna have if we gonna have give these fans any type of faith to look forward to going into next season, because we can't do nothing about this season. This season already over. Ain't a damn thing we can do about this season, but give people some faith and some hope that still want to be with us going into next season. Because if you don't fix this shit now, the people you got with you now, you ain't even gonna have them going to next season. So it's gonna be another hit. You think you ain't selling no tickets this year, you ain't gonna have a damn thing out there in the stands next year. You gonna hear echoes in the damn stand next year. So what you gotta do right now is you gotta go ahead and chalk it up and say, look, Bryce ain't the guy. Let's just go ahead and get a vet in here. Let's see what this veteran can do. Let's see if we can win a few games with this vet. Let's see if we can get the guys on this team to get back to believing and fighting hard and playing for each other. Because it don't even look like that. You look at a Panther game, it look like every man for himself. They don't even one damn be there. They just out there playing because they getting paid. They just out there because the damn NFL schedule say they got to be out there playing who the schedule say they got to play. They look pissed off at Bryce Young, especially Adam Thielen, wide open, streaking down the side of crossing over the middle of the field, and damn Bryce Young can't get him the ball. He won't step up into his throws. His footwork don't look good. He can't see over the line. Everything's a damn check down. Now you went and took Xavier Legette in the first round of this past draft out of South Carolina, the wide receiver. You can't even get him the damn ball. You got a complete shit show mess going on over there. If you Dave Canals, you got to sit this guy. I don't give a damn you what you traded up to get. You got to chalk it up as a loss and say, look, hey, we fucked up. Well, not Dave Canals because he wasn't there when they did all this. But look, the front office got to say, look, we made a huge mistake. We fucked up with this trading up to get this Bryce Young guy. Let's just go ahead and chalk this up as a L and get the hell off this guy. Because the more we keep feeding into this guy and lying ourselves and making ourselves believe that we ain't fucked up, that's the more we're going to keep setting this franchise back. Eventually, somebody going to have to do something. Dave Canals, I understand you're a rookie head coach, this, that, and third, but what you got to do is you got to sit this dude. This dude ain't going to do nothing but make you look bad because you were brought in here to fix him. And if he ain't being fixed, that's a reflection of you. So what you need to do now is to salvage that, is to sit his ass down, get a vet in there, somebody that don't look scared, somebody that look like they can get the voice of the team back, get the team back together, be the voice of the team. Nobody listening to Bryce Young. Nobody listening to that. Get you a veteran quarterback in there somebody gonna listen to. Pull Andy Dalton off the bench. Give him the starting nod. Let him come in. At least Andy Dalton was winning games and making the playoffs when he was the starting quarterback over there at Cincinnati. At least he was doing that. So he knows something about something. Get him in there, especially these games that are winnable. You already gonna have a tough time winning games that ain't winnable, or you ain't gonna win games that ain't winnable. So at least win the games that are winnable. And I don't even know what game this season they favored in because I don't know who's worse than them right now. But you got guys that's out there half-ass and they don't even want to be there because the team and the ownership and the front office is sticking behind Bryce Young, a guy who is not even a leader. Get a guy in there that's got some bass in his voice, put him back there, get him to start nod, let the team start developing and playing hard. Get a guy something to feel good about. Don't nobody feel good about going in there getting their ass whooped the way they get whooped every week. All because you want to stick with Bryce Young. If he ain't winning games or if he ain't coming close to winning games, sit his ass on the bench. Don't keep him out there fucking up the team. So that's exactly what you're doing. And guys are feeling like that. You got guys out there that don't want to be the laughing stock, but because you sticking with Bryce Young, you are the laughing stock. You seen the frustration on Adam Thielen's face. You got to get somebody in there that's gonna get these guys playing hard. And you had the guy in Steve Wilkes. Steve Wilkes had this team one game away from the playoffs after he fired Matt Rule, which was a disastrous season. He went 500 the rest of the way, 6-6. Came down to the last game of the season at Tampa, in which they had a lead at the half. They ended up losing the game down the stretch, and Tampa ended up winning the division. But if Carolina had won that game, they would have won the division. But even more, if you go all the way back to when they played the Atlanta Falcons earlier in that season, that they came from behind on a P.J. Walker Hail Mary pass, caught by DJ Moore. DJ Moore took his helmet off out of the back of the end zone. They threw a flag, which pushed the extra point back, and they ended up missing the extra point and losing to the Falcons by a point. Now, if they had won that game, that last game of the season probably wouldn't have mattered. But you still want to win that game because if you Carolina, you ain't in no position to drop games just because. Then they ultimately came back and said that was a penalty that shouldn't have been called because DJ Moore was out of the field of play when he took his helmet off. He was out of the back of the end zone. He was back there by the stand where the fans at when he took his helmet off out of the back of the end zone behind the goalpost. So they came back and reviewed that and said a flag should have never been thrown on that because DJ Moore was out of the field of play when he removed his helmet. But back to what I was saying about Kelly, you got to sit this guy. Nobody out there looks like they like playing with this guy. Sit him down. If you Dave Canals in the back of your head, you know this ain't your guy. This ain't your guy. That goes back to the point I'm making. Why are we taking these quarterbacks high, expecting for them to solve problems in 2 years that team's been had for the past 5? Like, why is the Carolina Panthers thinking Bryce Young is going to solve the issues that they've been having? He's not going to solve them. If anything, he's going to add on to the issue. He's adding on to the issue. He's not solving. He's adding on to the issue. He had 84 yards passing yesterday. He was sacked twice and he threw an interception. 18 of 26 for 84 yards. You completed 18 passes and you only got 84 yards. A bunch of dinking and dunking. Checking it down to the running back. Four and 5 yard passes. You ain't gonna win no damn games like that. You got people that you ain't even getting in it. You ain't incorporating them in offense. Deontay Johnson, you brought him in for what? 3 receptions, 15 yards. Like, what is the point of bringing in help when you got a quarterback that can't even get the ball to the damn hip? You bring it in, sit his ass down, get you a vet quarterback like Andy Dalton to come in there, get this offense moving. Because the offense ain't moving. The offense got more than 3 and outs than they do first downs. As a result, you putting the defense back on the field constantly, and they breaking. They ain't bending, they breaking. You got people going for career highs against Carolina right now. Points, receptions, yards, everything. Career highs. It's a joke. It's a complete shit show. And I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL don't get involved with this and investigate this guy. Because they right now is bad for business. $4 and $5 tickets to go to the game. But enough of that shit show, man. We had other NFL action. Like I said, the Panthers got their ass beat yesterday again. At home against the Chargers, 26-3. Last night we had Sunday night football. We had the Bears and the Texans. CJ Stroud, again, another stellar performance, hell of a performance. 23 of 36, 260. He had a TD. He was sacked 3 times. But they edged out the Chicago Bears 19-13. Caleb Williams, 174 yards passing, 2 picks. He got sacked 7 times. I think he was without Keenan Allen and Rome Meduze. But Houston edged them out 19-13 at home. Then you had Kansas City and Cincinnati. Kansas City coming out on top, 1-point win, 26-25. Controversial call, pass interference. Looking at it in slow-mo, what I seen, it was pass interference. But you got to understand that the Kansas City Chiefs is the NFL's new version of the New England Patriots. This is going to be a team that is going to replace the New England Patriots. Pat Mahomes is essentially Tom Brady. Andy Reid is essentially Bill Belichick, except he's more offensive and Belichick was more defensive. Travis Kelce is essentially Gronk. If you look at the New England Patriots, outside of Randy Moss, they didn't really have any household name wide receivers. So if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, outside of Tyreek Hill, they didn't really have any household names, and nobody really knew Tyreek Hill until he emerged on the scene with the Kansas City Chiefs. Unlike Randy Moss, he was already known prior to coming to New England. But if you want to equate the two, for the example that I'm setting, that's probably the most notable wide receiver that you know of or knew of from Kansas City, which was Tyreek Hill. He's no longer there. The more notable wide receiver that you probably remember and knew of was Randy Moss in New England. He left. Running backs, they had running backs to fit their system the same way they got running back now, Pacheco, to fit Kansas City system. So this is the NFL's new version of the New England Patriots. They're getting the calls. They're winning close games in the same fashion that the New England Patriots were getting the calls and winning close games. This is the NFL's new version of what the New England Patriots was. And it's kind of funny that once the New England Patriots started to fall off, they already had the Kansas City Chiefs ready to go with Mahomes. Soon as the Patriots fell off and Tom Brady left New England, went down to Tampa, the Kansas City Chiefs was already that new team in the AFC emerging. And they were right there to take off once Tom Brady left New England and went to Tampa in the NFC. They were right there to take off and take over in the AFC. And that's what they've been doing so far. They're going for a 3-peat on the Super Bowl this year. But they edged out Cincinnati 26-25. You're looking at the stats on that one. Let's see who did what. Joe Burrow, 258 through the air, 2 TDs, got sacked 3 times. Pat Mahomes, 151 through the air, 2 TDs and 2 picks, and he got sacked twice. But they edged him out. So yeah, that's what Kansas City is. Kansas City is now is the new version of what the New England Patriots were. So they're gonna get the calls, they're gonna get the home cooking, they even gonna get it on the road. So things are gonna sway in their favor. You now have people who are now Kansas City Chiefs fans. I'm not talking about people that's from Kansas City or living in the city or in that area, Kansas City area. I'm talking about people who don't know a damn thing about the Chiefs prior to Pat Mahomes getting there, and they don't even know when Pat Mahomes got there. They just got on the wagon when they started winning. They don't know a damn thing about Kansas City Chiefs when Pat got there or prior to Pat getting there. The same way they ain't know a damn thing about the New England Patriots prior to Tom Brady winning. All they know is that's a team that's winning and they gonna jump on a winning team. And that's what they got a lot of fans now off of that. So that's exactly what I mean by they're the new NFL's new version. They're the new cash cow in the NFL now. That's the new version for the NFL of the New England Patriots. But they edged out Kansas City edged out the Cincinnati Bengals 26-25 at home. Pittsburgh 13-6 over the Denver Broncos. And like I've been telling y'all, man, the Steelers are winning games, but they can't keep winning games 13-6. At some point, I think that the New England, I keep saying New England, the Pittsburgh Steelers gonna have to get more offensive. They're gonna have to get more. And people talking about Justin Fields' play, yeah, he's but 13 or 20, 117 yards of a TD and sacked twice. Those are not lights out numbers. This is a passing league. And so far, 117 yards doesn't wow anybody. 117 yards, you should have that at the half. Probably a little more than that at the half. It's a passing league. Um, and I get it. Justin Fields, in my opinion, you're probably gonna keep rolling with Justin Fields because you're winning games with Justin Fields. But that still is kind of like making my point. They're not offensive enough. I think they need to be more explosive, especially when you got a guy like George Pickens who only had 2 receptions for 29 yards. I think they need to get more explosive, starting with the quarterback position. Somebody that could get the ball down to the playmakers. And I think they need to get more playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Not sure how much they invested they are into Najee Harris being uh with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the future. 17 attempts, 69 yards rushing. Warren 9 attempts, 42 yards. Justin Fields had 8 attempts for 27 yards. Cordell Patterson 2 attempts for 3 yards. They got to get more offensive. Those offensive numbers ain't good. And in Denver, you put it up against a bad Denver team. It's 13 points. I get it on the road, back-to-back weeks on the road. Last week you was in Atlanta. This week you in Denver. But you got to get more offensive. You got to get some offensive explosion over there. You got to get more aggressive. You got to get more offensive over there in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Offensive coordinator Arthur Smith over there now. So still, you got to get offensive over there. You can't win a lot of games 13-6 in this NFL. I just think that you got to be more offensive. They're winning games. That's good. They're winning the games, but I don't think that you could rely solely on that. So Pittsburgh 13-6 over Denver. The Rams and the Cardinals. This one was a shocker. I took the Rams to win. I did not see a 41-10 Arizona game. I did not see Arizona winning the game at all, let alone win 41-10. So I guess whatever issues may have or may not have been with Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray, they ironed that shit out in that game. He was looking for Marvin Harrison, and he did get the ball to Marvin Harrison. So after making the statement last week that it's not his job to do so, and I didn't understand why he made that statement when you are the quarterback. It is your job to distribute the ball to the receivers and playmakers, and Marvin Harrison is a playmaker. Marvin Harrison is the one that you selected 4th overall in this past draft. So why the hell ain't you putting the emphasis on getting him the ball, which makes absolutely no goddamn sense to me. And it's not like he was drafted too high. Marvin Harrison Jr., was looked at last year. I remember when C.J. Stroud was doing his pro day and Marvin Harrison was out there on the field. He was throwing to Marvin Harrison at his pro day. There were NFL scouts that already had seen C.J. Stroud. They were showing up to see Marvin Harrison, even though he was not going into the NFL draft that year. He was going into the NFL draft the following year. So there were teams already showing up a year before he was set to go into the NFL draft to see him at C.J. Stroud's pro day at Ohio State. So at Ohio State's pro day when C.J. Stroud was throwing. So yeah, so somebody said something to somebody about something dealing with getting the ball to Marvin Harrison because that's exactly what they did. They beat the divisional Rams 41-10. I didn't see that. I had the Rams winning that game, especially how the Rams played the week before against Detroit on opening night, Sunday night. But you're looking at Kyler Murray. Well, Stafford, he had 216 through the air. He didn't throw for a TD or a pick. He got sacked 5 times. Blake Corum, he did get 8 carries, 28 yards. Kyron Williams, 12 carries for 25 yards. So they didn't get the run game going at all. Um, Cooper Kupp 4 receptions, 37 yards. After last week, he had 21 targets. I think he had 10 or 11 receptions. I think he had 11 receptions or something like that last week on 21 targets. That wasn't the case this week. No Puka Nacua. He's missing some time. Um, so he didn't play. You're looking at Kyler Murray, 17 to 21, 266, 3 TDs. He only got sacked once. James Conner, they did get the run game going actually in Arizona. James Conner had 21 rush attempts, 122 yards and a TD. Kyler Murray, 5 attempts, 59 yards. So they did get the run game going. Marvin Harrison, 4 receptions, 130 yards. So they was throwing the ball down in 2 TDs. So they was throwing the ball down the field, getting it to Marvin Harrison. He had 8 targets, but he had 4 receptions for $130. So they did emphasize getting the ball to him this week. Like I said, somebody told somebody something about something that Kyler Murray said, and they ain't gonna come out and say that, but I can tell from last week's game to this week's game, something was said somewhere to somebody about something, and it got through because they ended up getting the ball on 8 targets, 4 receptions, 100 and what I said, 20 something yards, and 2 TDs or something. So they did something. Another shocker was the Raiders and the Ravens. Right now, I'm just surprised at that AFC North division. You got the Ravens who are 0-2. You got the Cincinnati Bengals who are 0-2, and you got the Cleveland Browns who are 1-1. So the team that I said need to get more offensive is the team that's at the top of that division right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, it's only 2 games into the season. I get that. But I did not expect the Las Vegas Raiders to go on the road to Baltimore and get a victory. They won 26-23. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you got to get in there and figure out what the hell is going on. Because starting 0-2, like I said, it's only 2 games, but 2 games could make a big difference towards the end of the season, determining whether or not you get in the playoffs or not, whether you control your own destiny or not, whether you need help from another team losing or not. You know what I mean? Like I said, people don't look at it like that because it's the first 2 games of the season. But you got to look at it down the stretch. If you had won one of those 2 games or both of those games to start the season, especially when you were favored and should have won those games and you didn't, and now you relied on help from somebody else at the end of the season that you didn't get, because there's other teams that are still jockeying for playoff position and still fighting to get in. So nobody's going to help nobody, especially if you're a team like the Baltimore Ravens. You're not looking for help. You shouldn't be looking for help. You should be controlling your own destiny. And this was a winnable game at home against the Las Vegas Raiders in which you lost. So you fall to 0-2 to start the season. And like I said, this AFC North with Cincinnati 0-2 and Baltimore 0-2, and then Cleveland being 1-1 as they beat Jacksonville yesterday. And the team that I said need to be more offensive, like I said, they sitting at the top of the division right now at 2-0 with Justin Fields as the starting quarterback. So, and if you had to rank the quarterbacks in that division, I don't think that you would put Justin Fields or where it should have been Russell, where it was announced it was going to be Russell Wilson until he had to sit out week 1, and then they went back with Justin Fields week 2. So I think that's Justin Fields' job to lose, and I think they're going to roll with Justin Fields, or they're going to roll with the hot hand who keep winning them games, which is Justin Fields right now. They ugly wins, but they wins. And you will take them right now looking at the division. So the Las Vegas Raiders going on the road to Baltimore and getting a win 26-23. You look at what Gardner Minshew, he had 276 yards passing. He was 30 of 38. Now I'm shocked that he went on the road and was able to do this against the Baltimore Ravens defense in Baltimore. 30 of 38, 276, a TD and a pick. Now he was sacked 5 times, but he still put up damn near 300 yards passing and a TD. Devontae Adams, 9 receptions, 110 and a TD, on 12 targets. I didn't think that Gardner Minshew was going to be the type of quarterback that was going to be able to do this with the Raiders. I'm shocked that they went on the road and won this one, as I had Baltimore beating the Las Vegas Raiders. I had Brock Bowers, nine receptions on 9 targets for 98 yards. So, I didn't think that was going to be done. I thought Baltimore was going to come back and win this game this week, especially after they lost the season opener to Kansas City. I thought they were going to come back home and take care of business against a team that they were favored to beat. But they didn't. They lost. Now they fall to 0-2. Lamar, 21 of 34, 247. He had a TD and a pick, and he was sacked twice. Derrick Henry, 18 attempts, 84 yards, and a TD. Lamar, 5 rush attempts, 45 yards. Zay Flowers, 7 receptions, 91 yards, and a TD. Isaiah Likely, 3 targets. He only got 2 receptions for 26 yards. Now, that's the guy I think they need to get more involved in the offense. If you had to pick a weakness about this team or area about this team that was a weakness, you would probably say the receiving core. Um, I don't think any of these guys, Zay Flowers, you can't really, I mean, he's a second-year receiver. You can't really expect him. You can, but you can't really expect him to be your number one go-to guy. He's second-year receiver. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, who ain't been healthy enough to really be considered that since he's been in the NFL. Isaiah Likely. So the receivers is, if you had to pick an area of weakness with Baltimore, would be the receivers. And if you got a guy like Isaiah Likely, who's a tight end, but who can also line up as a wide out and they can present mismatch problems, especially when you're in the red zone, I think you need to get him more involved than just 3 targets and 2 receptions on 26 yards. You got to scheme some things up to get this guy going. He can be a mismatch nightmare. He's athletic, and he's not a blocking tight end. He needs to be out running routes, and if he is blocking, it needs to be a chip block, and then he needs to be releasing, getting ready to receive a pass. I think you got to get this guy more involved. But I didn't see Las Vegas going on the road winning this game, but they came out with a win to go 1-1 and dropped the Ravens to 0-2 to start the season. Seahawks, Patriots. I took the Patriots to win this one, in which they almost did, but it was the Seahawks who took the cross country trip, went to Boston, went to Foxborough actually, and beat them. I'm surprised at how the New England Patriots started the season. I didn't think the Patriots was going to be. I thought the Patriots was going to be borderline like what the Panthers is right now. I thought it was going to be a complete shit show over there. But the more I look at it, they've actually got a side of the ball in which they can start on, and they have started on. It's a damn good start. On the defensive side of the ball, because you got defensive minded head coach Gerard Mayo over there. So defensively, I think the New England Patriots are pretty solid. Having Christian Gonzalez on, and then you got Jabril Peppers, and then you got the other safety, Kyle Duggar. So just imagine if they get into this draft and they high enough to get a Travis Hunter type of player who can, I don't know what they gonna draft him to play, either wide receiver or DB. But if you add him to that defensive group over there with Christian Gonzalez on the other side, they're there. I mean, and then they probably could, replace what they lost in Matthew Judon. I mean, you'll have something solid over there. You already got something solid defensively over there if you're the Patriots, but you could be real special on the defensive side of the ball if something like that happened. But Geno Smith, 33 of 44, 327 yards. He threw for a TD and was sacked 3 times. Metcalf, 10 receptions, $129 with a TD. Jackson Smith and Jigma, 12 receptions, 117 yards. He actually had the most targets on the team, 16, followed by DK Metcalf with 14. So then if you look at the Patriots, Jacoby Brissett, 15 of 27, 149 yards with a TD. The run game, Gibson, 11 attempts, 96 yards. So they had pretty solid. Ramon Stevenson, 21 attempts, 81 yards rushing. So they was able to get the ground game going against Seattle. But it was Seattle that came out on top 23-20 in overtime. But I didn't think the Patriots were going to come out and look this solid. I didn't think they were going to be 1-1 to start the season. I thought they were going to be 0-2, losing to both Cincinnati and Seattle. But then yesterday I made the pick that they could upset Seattle. Seattle making the cross country trip. And being a defensive team, I think they were going to give Geno Smith some problems, but evidently that wasn't the case. Because Geno threw for 327 on the defense in Foxborough, and they came out of 23-20. Browns at Jags. Like I said, the Browns are now 1-1, bouncing back after that ugly ass loss at home last week against the Dallas Cowboys. They beat Jacksonville. Jacksonville now falls to 0-2 to start the season. 18-13 win. Let's see. Deshaun Watson, 22 of 34, 186 yards. He didn't throw for a TD or pick, was sacked twice. Trevor Lawrence, 14 of 30, 220. So nobody threw for a touchdown in this game. He was sacked 4 times. That really wasn't a game I was interested in. So, Cleveland won 18-14 to go to 1-1, and Jacksonville drops to 0-2. Giants and Commanders, another one that I would really care about, but the Commanders end up winning on a game-winning field goal. Daniel Jones, 16 of 28, 178 yards, 2 TDs, and he was sacked once, which is surprising that he was only sacked once. I thought he was going to be sacked about at least 4 times. Malik Neighbors, 10 receptions, 127 yards, and a TD. If you look at Jaden Daniels, 22 of 39, 226 yards. He didn't throw for a TD, but he was sacked 5 times. Brian Robinson, 17 attempts, 133 yards rushing. Jaden Daniels, 10 attempts, 44 yards on the ground. I think there's too many attempts for Jaden Daniels with his frame. 10 attempts rushing the ball for him. I don't think that's going to be a good recipe. I think that if you continue to do that, you're going to beat him and run him into the ground. And it's going to be a whole nother RG3. I hope not, but it's going to be a whole nother RG3 situation over there. You're going to run him in the ground and he ain't going to be worth nothing. So they got to do better with they got to provide him some weapons too. I understand they got rid of a receiver and sent him to the Eagles. But I don't think you need to run Jay McDaniels 10 times a game. Now, if you want to run him maybe 5, split that in half because he is a mobile QB. But I didn't see the game yesterday, so I don't know how much of those rushing attempts were drop back passes, and then he just took off once the pocket collapsed, or took off when he couldn't find nobody down the field, and he just took what the defense gave him with his legs. I don't know how much of that was that, or was it design runs for Jay McDaniels. I hope it wasn't design runs, but if he has to, improv with his legs when the play break down or when the pocket collapse or, when he can't find an open receiver, he just take what the defense give him. Then you got to do what you got to do, get out of bounds, get out. But I don't think they need to have 8 to 10 design runs for this guy. You want to sprinkle in 2 or 3 design runs and then, let him do his thing, But 10 attempts, I think that's too much for Jaden Daniels. In my opinion, but needless to say, they got out of there with a game-winning field goal, 21-18 over the Giants. Jets and Titans. Will Levis, we finding out that he's probably ain't the quarterback for the future of this team. I think Tennessee actually has a solid team, put together, minus Will Levis. I think that they put Will Levis in his position to see whether he would be the guy for this team. They added Calvin Ridley. They added Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. They added the running back from Dallas. I can't think his name. Tony Pollard. They added him. So combined with the fact they already have a solid defense, and then added Jerry Sneed to that defense. So they, in my opinion, with good quarterback play, this team could be a real solid team. We finding out that ain't happening, and it ain't coming from Will Levis. If you look at Will Levis, first of all, Will Levis had 192 yards passing. He had 1 TD, 1 pick, and he was sacked 4 times. Tony Pollard, 17 attempts, 62 yards. Will Levis, 4 attempts, 38 yards. Calvin Ridley, 4 receptions, 77 yards on 6 targets. Tony Pollard, 5 for 40. Get Aaron Rodgers, 18 of 30, 176 yards, 2 TDs. Garrett Wilson, 4 receptions, 57 yards. Breece Hall, 7 receptions, 52 yards. So the Jets bounced back from a Monday night loss to San Francisco last week. Back-to-back road games for the Jets to start the season. They bounced back, even get back to start the season 1-1. Tennessee, they fall to 0-2. As they had a lead in Chicago last week, they lost it. Ugly interception last week, and then Will Levis with another ugly turnover this week. So I think Callahan is starting to realize, and we're only 2 games in, that Will Levis might not be his guy, and probably ain't his guy. So they don't have a bad team assembled around Will Levis. I think what they probably need to do is just go ahead and Will Levis won't be, if this continues, Will Levis won't be the quarterback next year. I think they feel like they got a playoff caliber team if Will Levis plays how he's supposed to. If they don't make the playoffs, then they're gonna move off of Will Levis. I mean, that's just what it is. You don't have much time in the NFL to show improve, especially when they put a team around you, and they brought a coach in that was supposedly be to help you as a quarterback, and you ain't getting it done. But moving on, another surprise: Bucks over the Lions. Um, the Bucks are actually better than I thought they were going to be this season. They started the season 2-0. Last week they beat the Washington Commanders. This week they go on the road and beat the Detroit Lions 20-16. Holding the Detroit Lions to 16 points. I didn't think the Tampa Bay defense was going to be able to do that because they lost both of their DBs. They lost Sean Murphy Button to Arizona, and then they lost Carlton Davis to the Detroit Lions. They lost both of those guys. And I think they lost Vita up front yesterday to a knee injury. I'm not sure how significant the knee injury is, how much time he's gonna miss. But Baker Mayfield, 12 of 19, 185 yards, a TD and a pick, and he was sacked 5 times. I think Aiden Hutchinson had like four or five of them, by itself. But if you Detroit, I don't understand how the hell this happened because Jared Goff passed 30. He was 34-55 for 307 yards, but he had 2 picks. Jahmyr Gibbs, 13 attempts, 84 yards. David Montgomery, 11 attempts, 35 yards. So they basically outgained yardage-wise the Tampa Bay Bucks, but they end up losing the game to Tampa 20-16. I don't get that. It just seems like the Detroit Lions was probably driving the length of the field and getting field goals and not getting into the end zone. And Tampa was playing solid defense when they had to play it, and making plays when they had to play it, and they were outgained numbers wise, but they end up winning the game though. That's crazy. But Tampa's now 2-0. Detroit falls to 1-1. I didn't think the Tampa Bay Bucks were going to be this good this year. I thought that Baker Mayfield was probably going to take a step back with Dave Canales, who was the former coordinator there last season, now being the head coach of Carolina this season. I thought he helped Baker look the way he looked, which was the best he looked since he's been in the league last season. I thought Dave Canales was a big part of that. And losing that, I was curious and anxious to see how Baker Mayfield was going to come back this season and look without him. But they starting the season 2-0. Baker seemed to be doing pretty much the same thing so far this season that he did last year. Like I said, we only 2 games in, but going on the road, beating a playoff contending team like the Detroit Lions in Detroit. This is the same team that you lost to last year in the playoffs. So coming back, beating them in Detroit, who you lost in Detroit to last year, that was big early in the season. Like I said, 2 games in, but Tampa Bay sitting there 2-0, and they better than I thought they was going to be. So right now in the NFC South, the only team that looked like, well, we'll see what Atlanta do tonight against Philly, but right now the 2 teams that seem to be pretty much taking off and looking better than a lot of teams right now is the Saints and the damn Buccaneers. 49ers at the Vikings. That's another game I missed. I didn't think that San Fran was going to lose in Minnesota. Now the news about Christian McCaffrey, and you having to start Jordan Mason because Christian McCaffrey he's on the IR, so he's gonna miss at least 4 games. Could be more than that with the injury that I read. But I didn't think that San Francisco was going to go to Minnesota and lose the game. I didn't think Sam Darnold was going to look yesterday the way he did against San Fran, especially after San Fran coming off a good solid win on Monday night against the Jets. So now San Fran fall to 1-1 and the Vikings go to 2-0. Brock Purdy, he threw for over 300 yards. He was 28 of 36, 319. He had a TD, a pick, and he was sacked 6 times. Jordan Mason, 20 attempts, 100 yards, and a TD. So you had the ground game going, and then you had it going through the air with Brock Purdy throwing for over 300 yards. So that was just defense letting Minnesota get up and down the field. Now they gave up a 97-yard pass to Justin Jefferson. Sam Darnold, 17 of 26, 268, 2 TDs, a pick, and he got sacked 3 times. Aaron Jones, 9 attempts, 32 yards, and Chandler, 10 attempts, 82 yards. So that was just the defense of San Francisco that let them down. That 97-yard play, that did them in. Sam Darnold threw it to Justin Jefferson. That 97-yarder, that did them in. But I didn't think that San Francisco was going to lose this game in Minnesota. I picked San Francisco to go to Minnesota and win the game, but obviously they didn't. They lost to the Vikings 23-17 as they go 1-1 and the Vikings go 2-0. The Saints at the Cowboys, I did not see this at all. I thought the Dallas Cowboys were going to beat the Saints. I thought the Saints were going to fall to 1-1 and Dallas was going to go to 2-0. But not only did the Cowboys lose, they got all kinds of hell beat out of them. 44-19 in Dallas. Um, you got Derek Carr. It looked like he jumped in a transformation chamber or in a time machine and went back about 5 years. Um, Derek Carr, 11 of 16, 243 yards. That's, 16 attempts is not a lot in an NFL game. You know what I mean? He was 11 of 16, 243 yards, 2 TDs, 1 pick, and he got sacked once. Alvin Kamara had 20 attempts, 115 yards, and 3 TDs. And he also had a receiving TD. So, you know, Dallas, they looked good last week in Cleveland, but then they come back home and look and don't look like a damn thing. Now Dak Prescott, 27 of 39, 293 yards, a TD and 2 picks, and he got sacked 3 times. So if you look at the Cowboys, they didn't do much on the ground. They didn't do much at all on the ground. CeeDee Lamb had 4 receptions for 90 yards. Tolbert had 6 for 82. Brandon Cooks 2 for 19. They didn't do much on the ground. It just seemed like they couldn't stop the Saints. The Saints just seemed like they had more explosive plays. They couldn't stop Alvin Kamara in the run game or the passing game, and it just seemed like the Saints had more explosive plays because Derek Carr only, like I said, had 16 pass attempts, but he passed a complete 11 of them for 243 yards. So they had more. Their plays were more explosive. And it seemed like the Dallas Cowboys defensively couldn't stop the explosive play. They couldn't stop the ground game with Alvin Kamara, and they just couldn't stop Alvin Kamara whether it was on the ground or through the air. And they had more explosive plays. They couldn't stop. So and it seemed like the Saints defense played better, much better much prepared to play and played better than Dallas defense did in Dallas. Dallas only scoring 19 points, been giving up 44. But I didn't see I didn't see that much hell getting beat out of the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't even see them losing the game. I took Dallas to win that game, coming back home. But they didn't. The Saints beat all kinds of hell out of them, 44-19. So like I said, now it's looking like the teams in the NFC South, like I said, look like it's the Bucks and the Saints. Like, we only 2 weeks into the season now, but so far looking at these two teams, the Bucks and the Saints, these two teams look like they could be at the top of the NFC South, jockeying for a playoff spot. If not, both teams could end up in the playoffs. I mean, who knows? There's still a lot of season left to go. There's still 15 games left to go. And we'll see what Atlanta do tonight. You had the Colts and the Packers, in which I lost that one too. I took the Colts over the Packers with Malik Willis getting the start with Jordan Love out. I didn't think Malik Willis was going to do enough to win the game. I thought that Anthony Richardson was going to outplay, even though the game was at Lambeau, I thought Anthony Richardson was going to outplay Malik Willis. But it ended up being Malik Willis outplaying Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson, 17 of 34, 204 yards. He had a TD and he had 3 picks. Now, Green Bay is a better defensive team. But I thought Anthony Richardson would do enough with his legs to kind of offset that and come out of there with a slim victory, but that wasn't the case. Jonathan Taylor, 12 attempts, 103 yards rushing. So they was able to get the ground game going with Jonathan Taylor. Richardson had 4 attempts for 37 yards. So, yeah, they was able to, get 140 yards on the ground between them two players. But Anthony Richardson only 17, 34, 204. But the 3 picks is what hurt him because they lost 16-10. Now, Malik Willis only threw for 122 yards. He was 12 of 14. He threw for 122 yards, and he had a TD. He didn't get sacked. Josh Jacobs was a big part of that offense yesterday. He had 32 rush attempts for 151 yards. So they did a lot of on the ground, and it was more of groundwork and defense because they got 3 picks, and then you had Josh Jacobs rush for 151 yards. So they did it on the ground, and they did it with defense. So they took care of the Indianapolis Colts. Green Bay going to 1-1, Indy going to 0-2. Start the season. The Bills and Dolphins, that was a Thursday night game in which the Bills beat the Dolphins. And, the biggest story from that was Tua's concussion issue. Since then, he came out and, or I've seen that he said he has no plans to retire. So, which I think he should because that's ugly. That many concussions. And then he had suffered a concussion last year against the Buffalo Bills on that same field. That was before the scary one at Cincinnati on a short week Thursday night. So somebody got to try to talk to this dude, which I'm quite sure people are talking to him. Reaching out, talking to him that he got to think about his family and his health more than football. And he just, signed a contract. I think he's getting like $53 million a year. So he got his guaranteed money, and good for him that he got his contract. Because this right here is a big issue. This concussions, the way he's getting them, and not just getting them, but it's like they're ugly concussions. I mean, I'm quite sure people reaching out to him trying to talk him into just saying, you got to think about your health over and family over football. So, you know, but tonight we got Monday Night Football, Falcons and Eagles. I'm gonna make my prediction here. I'm gonna take the Eagles, even though I think they're gonna be without AJ Brown, but I think they're gonna do enough or should do enough to beat the Falcons. The Falcons last week fell at home, 18-10, I believe it was, to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Eagles are more explosive than the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm gonna take the Eagles with Saquon. Saquon seems to be 100% healthy, especially the way he came out last week when they played in Brazil against the Packers. He seemed to be healthy. He seemed to be ready to go this season. Like I said, I think they're going to be without AJ Brown this game, but I think they're still going to do enough to beat the Falcons. I think they're going to do enough to beat the Falcons. I don't know what the Falcons' issues are. Like I said, I'm gonna keep saying this. It's only 2 weeks into the season. There's still 15 games to go. But Kirk Cousins didn't look good last week against a solid Steelers defense, and I'm not sure how good he's gonna look this week against a solid Eagles defense. Now, if you had to pick a weakness about this Eagles defense, it would be the secondary because they're young in the secondary, and the secondary can be exploited. But if you ain't got the quarterback to exploit it, then that kind of cancels that out. But I'm gonna take the Eagles to win it tonight. I could probably see like a maybe like a 27-17 type of game. I could be wrong because half of the picks that I picked this past week was off. This whole week was off. But I could be wrong. But I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take Philly in Philly tonight. It's probably gonna be like a 27-17 type of game. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna take the Eagles in that one. And I think the Falcons and Raheem Morris are going to get back to the drawing boards after this week because I think they're going to fall to 0-2. And you're going to be right down there with the Panthers at 0-2. But the thing about the Falcons' schedule is I looked at it, and the last time I checked, if I remember it right, the early part of this season is kind of difficult. But then once you get halfway through the season, it lighten up, and then on the back end it gets lighter. So I wouldn't be surprised if Atlanta start off slow, but then pick it up midway through the season, then finish strong down the stretch of the season because of how light the schedule is going to be on the back end and how it lightens up towards the middle of the season. It gets even lighter on the back end. So struggling right now for the Falcons. I wouldn't be surprised if they just go through this little, this difficult stretch of their schedule early on in the season and then start to pick it up when the schedule lightens up towards the mid-season, then down the stretch. So I'm expecting the Falcons to kind of struggle a little bit with the beginning of with the season because I think they got Kansas City coming up soon too. So and I'm not sure when Dallas come into Atlanta, but they're coming. So the front end of their schedule is going to be loaded, and then like I said, once it get probably like midway through the season, it lightens up, and then the back end down the stretch of the season is going to be even lighter. So Atlanta struggling right now. It wouldn't be a surprise, but I'm expecting for them to pick it up and get this thing going as the season goes. Because looking at the team that they have with the additions that they brought in, you don't want to get too far behind, especially when you're looking at what the Bucks and the Saints are doing right now, starting off 2-0, and you go down 0-2, you'll be down at the bottom with Carolina, and that's not a place or a company that the Falcons want to be in, considering what they brought in and the additions they made to this team. That ain't the company they want to be in. Down there at the bottom of the division. Like I said, it's only 2 games in. There's plenty of time to turn it around, but you don't want to be down there. You don't want to be in no mentions with the Carolina Panthers right now if you're the Atlanta Falcons. And if you lose this game tonight and fall to 0-2, that's exactly where you would be, down in the bottom with the Carolina Panthers at 0-2 while looking up at the Bucks and the Saints at 2-0. But that's my time, man. I got to get out of here. Those are my week 2 recap, NFL, week 3 recap of college football. Like I said, man, tune in. YouTube, head over there and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when brand new content releases. You can follow my platforms. They scrolling down at the bottom of the screen over on Instagram at damn_you2_ sports talk. Or if you want to follow me at X, Twitter, it's Damn You Too Sports Talk. If you want to follow me, Ralph Sneaks on IG is Ralph_Sneaks. If you just click the link in the sports page bio on IG, you can subscribe through the link too. But head over there, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow. I follow back. Until the next episode, man. I'll see y'all. Peace.